What's up, everyone? Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. I am super, super excited today to
Mm.
be here with this client interview for you guys. We got Valeria on with us today, and she just has an amazing story. She's overcome a lot of stuff to get to where she is today. She recently secured her full-time offer at a Bulge Bracket Bank, which is amazing. And so I wanted to get her to come on here and just share her story with you guys, talk through like the process that she went through to get here and how she was able to do so, and hopefully just give you guys some inspiration for what you're able to do as well in your own recruiting process. And so, like I said, she has an amazing story. I'm going to let her tell it herself. But Valeria, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. And
Thank you.
if you don't mind, just starting off by introducing yourself a little bit and giving people a little bit of your background.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very grateful for this moment. So I guess a little bit about myself. I'm currently a senior at a non-target school here in Miami, Florida. And I started working pretty like after I graduated high school, I started working at a bank. So I guess like not a traditional path to take, but I did it because I needed to help my mom financially. So
Mm,
I took on a full-time job at Wells Fargo, and I worked there for about 5 years as a personal banker.
yeah,
And that pretty much helped me just gain experience in just regular, basics of banking. Met with clients, so I gained that ability to talk to people and like sort of look at people's financials very broadly, nothing too intricate. And with my time there, I met a lot of people and got exposed to different areas of finance because I was looking for what I wanted to do with my life. And during that time as well, while working full time, I decided to go back to school and start college to get my degree. Something I promised my mom I would do.
yeah,
And so I went to school full time as well. And so that was tough, but doable. And then I signed up for Wall Street Mastermind about a little over 2 months ago.
mm,
And when I signed up, I made the decision that I had to sacrifice something to make this happen. And
yeah.
I decided to sacrifice my job.
Mm.
So I quit Wells Fargo, and that was probably the toughest decision I've had to make so far, just because, my mother relies a lot on that income that I was bringing in. It was pretty much sustaining us both. So I did that, and I just pretty much used the savings that I had and invested in this program.
Yeah.
So it took up a lot of that savings, but I made the decision that if I was going to do it, I was 100% sure of it, and I went confident, and that's why I invested. And now here I am talking to you, and I'm very, very happy for this moment, truly.
That's like I said, that's an amazing story. And I always, I mean, just so people understand, like what you're saying is when you graduated high school, you actually didn't go straight to college. You
No.
started working as a personal banker
Yeah.
because you needed to support your mom financially. And your dad's out of the picture, right? I think you told me that
Yeah.
yesterday. And so it's just
Yeah.
like you and your mom, and I think you have some siblings, right?
Yes, I have an older brother. So between both of us, but he's also working on his things, and so
Yeah.
my mom has just some, I guess, just like personal medical things that prevent her from pretty much working, and so me and him made the decision to just have her, stay home, and we would kind of do this together. So
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. So sounds like, I mean, that's like I said, a lot of stuff that you have to overcome because
yeah,
most college students aren't having to support their family financially, right? Like they can just be college students. They don't have to worry about working another job. And so you did that full time. And then
yeah,
even after you went back to school, you continued to work at Wells Fargo, right?
yes.
So now you're a full time student. And then I guess working part time, which is what, probably like 20 hours a week or something. Uh,
With Wells Fargo,
yeah, when you were in school.
no, I kept it 40 hours
Wow.
work, and then I just took like about 3 to 4 classes per semester.
Wow. So you were a
Yeah.
so you're a full-time student and you were working full-time. And
Yes.
so that's basically banking hours. I
It
guess.
was, yeah, I know. So it was funny because then the interview, like the guy was kind of like the last round interview on Wednesday. He was like, "Oh, like we work long hours. We work 80 to 100 hours like that. How are you gonna handle that?" I was like, well, yeah, I've been doing it for a couple years. Like, I think I can handle it. So that was kind of funny when he asked me that.
Just drop the mic right there.
Yeah, for real. But
um,
yeah, it took a lot of convincing managers because in the bank it's demanding, so they had to work around their schedule. But kind of sort of put my foot down, and I was like, listen, I'm studying finance, like I'm trying to do this to grow a career. I might even be here, like you never know. So
yeah,
and then I would do good at work, try my best, and between my managers and my district manager, they really supported me with my schedule. So
yeah. So
yeah.
then, like you said, you joined Wall Street Mastermind 2 months ago, but one, you used up like the majority of your savings to pay for this
Yeah.
program, which is definitely, I'm sure, took a lot of guts, right? And you're making it. But then, secondly, you said that you had to to focus on recruiting. Something had to give. You can't continue to do school and work and do 80, 90, 100 hours a week and add recruiting on top of that. So then you
Yeah.
decided to leave Wells Fargo, which I guess that freed up 40 hours a week for you, right? So
Hmm.
they can focus on recruiting. But that was probably a really tough decision because like your mom is relying on you to support her financially with that job. So who was paying the bills then when you quit the job?
Yeah, good question. A lot of things were going on during those past couple of months. I was in the process of selling the apartment just for, like reasons that nothing bad on the contrary. It's just like the neighborhood. We didn't like it. We were just very uncomfortable there. We thought it was time to move on. And so we made the decision to sell it during that time. Then I was finishing an internship at Bank of America, going back to work. And then I made this whole decision with Wall Street Mastermind. So it was a lot. I had my savings that kind of held us for another month and a half. And then the proceeds from the apartment, my mom made the decision to kind of split that amongst myself and my brother. And I initially said that I would save that, try to grow it, and use that money to move, wherever I was gonna go with my career. But then I told her, like, you know what? Like I need to use it. Like, and if I'm gonna do that, then I made the commitment and the promise that I would land the job and like push it and just like kill it because I know that that's pretty much it. That's all the assets that were under the family name. So she made that decision, and I had her 100% support, my brother as well, and that's pretty much where we've been at these past couple of months. And so now the goal is to get back out there, start working again and try to rebuild the savings.
That's I mean, first of all, I'm like super humbled that you guys had the faith in me and our program to kind of like bet the farm essentially. It's like because there are I think there are a lot of people out there that are very skeptical in general, right? And I understand
Hmm.
why, because there are a lot of bad programs out there who claim they'll do certain things and then they don't deliver. And obviously, like a lot of people say, "Oh, Wall Street Mastermind is a scam, whatever," even though they never used it. And I get it because they're
Yeah.
kind of lumping us in with all the other bad programs out there. It's like, oh, online
Hmm.
program must be a scam, and it's not true. But for
Hmm.
you to have enough faith and put your trust in us, and even get to this point, like that's not a given, right? Like I think a lot of people in your situation probably would not uh, dare to like bet everything they have on themselves and on us, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm just super humbled that you guys were willing to do that, and your mom and your brother for supporting you 100%. Like I said, I mean, what was what was it like when you got the job and you called your mom and told her? Just-
Well, I was in the bathroom and just like cleaning my bathroom. My mom was here in the apartment, and when the HR rep called me, like I couldn't talk. Like I just started crying. And so she heard me like, oh my God. I guess I said it like really loud. And she just like ran into the bathroom. She's like, are you okay? And I just gave her like a thumbs up because the lady was talking. So she just starts crying too. And that was like the most, like, that is one of the most emotional moments I've had in my life. I promise you. We were just like moping, both of us, like nonstop.
Yeah.
And then, soon enough, I called my brother to come back to the apartment, and he was like freaking out. He didn't cry though, but he was just like, "Oh yeah, like that's so badass." So it was awesome. Like
Uh,
the best feeling of my life, hands down.
yeah.
Biggest accomplishment I can say. Yeah.
You're crying on the phone with the HR person, and the HR person is on the other side of the line.
Yes, and she was like, "Oh my God, like stop, you're gonna make me cry. Like I'm so happy for you." I was like, "I'm so sorry. Like, this is just crazy. Like you have no idea." And so that was really, really funny. Like she could not stop laughing.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure you made
Yeah.
the HR person's day as well, because most people probably don't get that. I mean, people are happy when they get offers in banking, but like I think we got hundreds of students get offers, and most of them are not like that emotional. But I totally understand why you were though, right? Because
Yeah.
again, you like were so committed to this, and you have put everything you got into this, and both
Yeah.
financially and emotionally and like physically, right? Like probably
Hmm.
working super hard over the last 2 months. And so absolutely, to like see the payoff is just I can't even imagine.
It's
And
like, yeah, I was speechless, honestly speechless. Like even I was just thinking about like my mom when I first came about your program to her just to get her opinion, and she was like, "Oh, every Hispanic parent is the same. They're like, oh, are you sure they're not cheating you? Like, it's not some fraud. Like, I gotta research. Let me see. Let me hear some of these podcasts that you've been listening to."
yeah.
And I was like, "Mom, like, I feel pretty legit. Like, this seems legit. And let's just try it. Like, I just need to know that, you got my back with this." And she did. So, it was awesome. I think that was very important to have that moral support with me.
No, that's awesome, because what that also says is that your mom trusts your judgment enough to say, okay, like if you've done your homework and you believe that this is legit, then I support you, right? And even though we don't have a lot of money and this is a big investment, or like she trusted you, whereas we know a lot of parents out there who actually just assume that their kids don't know any better and like won't even give something like this a chance, because
Yeah.
there are too many companies out there that overpromise and underdeliver. So they're like, parents are more jaded. It's not even a Hispanic thing. It's just like a parent.
Right? It's just like a parent thing.
Yeah, it's just a parent thing. And I get
Yeah.
it. Like I'm a dad now, and I get that, because like I could totally see if my daughter came to me with something that I didn't understand. I would probably be very skeptical too, right? That's just how
For
we're conditioned.
sure.
But
For sure,
that's
yeah.
amazing that they're so supportive of you. And then you mentioned too, I think I didn't know this actually when you joined the program, but you mentioned that you were the first person in your family to get a corporate job. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah, I didn't think about it at the moment, but my brother was like, "You do realize like you're the first one. Like my dad's family, like my mom's family, like everybody, like you're the first one." I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're so right. Like that's crazy." Like it's crazy. It's not, and I have at least on my dad's side, it's a big family.
Yeah.
Big family. My mom's side is smaller, but still, it was just I'm still in shock just thinking about it. And to say like, yeah, I have a corporate job now. I have the dream job. Like you don't say that every day. You don't
Not,
hear it
not,
every
not just
day.
like not just a corporate job, not like a regular 9 to 5, but you have
Yeah.
one of the most elite, most selective, most sought after corporate job out there that pays 150 to 200K a year right out
Yeah.
of school, which is like
Crazy.
that's life changing, right?
Yes.
Especially for someone like you who's coming from where you guys are financially and having to take care of single parent and all this. Like this is how you kind of like change the trajectory for like
Oof.
for your
Yeah.
family tree, right? I mean, I don't want to like
Yeah.
be over the top with how we're talking about it, but like really that's what it is.
That's how I've been thinking about it. Like, it's just like my mom made sacrifices when she came over to the US and did all these things, and it didn't work out with my dad, and then she just raised me and my brother by herself and did all that to give me opportunities. So I felt like I needed to maximize on that, and I vowed that I would do so, and I feel like now I did it. So it's like I'm making her proud, and it's like, wow, I just changed the family like trajectory, like you said. Like now
Mm.
my kids are going to have a different future and different lifestyle than what I had. But it's nothing bad, on the contrary. Just I value it so much. And so just something that I'm trying to cherish and keep
Yeah.
it there,
No, no, absolutely. I mean, and I think like you should be very proud of yourself, right? Like there's so many people who, if they had been put in your situation, would have just stayed there, right? And I think a lot of people,
Yeah.
they have like a victim mentality where they say like, well, if I'm not more successful, it's I have like a legitimate excuse because I wasn't born with a silver spoon. I didn't have all the advantages that other people had. I didn't, I only had a single parent, blah blah blah. I had to work an extra job to support her, which when other people didn't have. Like, you had all the reasons in the world for why it would have been acceptable if you didn't do as well as some of the other students out there, right? But nonetheless, like those are all just you can say, I didn't make it because of that, or you can say like I made it despite of all that, right? And you choose
Right,
the
right.
latter, which is I think that's like a beautiful is an amazing thing. So I'm
Thank you.
I'm super super proud of you. I mean, like we've had other students in the program like who are similar situation as you, like didn't come from a lot, and every time someone like you guys, like this group of people, first of all, like putting your trust in us, but then second of all, like, and you know what's ironic too is always people, students like you guys, who had to put so much more just to be in this program, who typically get the most out of the program because it's like your back is against the wall, like
Yeah.
you're more committed than anybody else, and failure is not an option, and
Hmm.
you have to make it work, right?
Sure isn't. Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
it's like, but I'm always like I'm proud of all of our students, but I'm the most proud of those who had to like just even like you said, like make a lot of sacrifices just to be here, And so I think that's amazing. So we should probably talk a little bit about like, you know, well, first of all, actually, like I want to understand your psyche a little bit, which is like, why did you decide to join the program as opposed to just like
Yeah.
do it yourself? Because most people in your situation, I think the more common thing to think is like, nah, I can't afford this. I'm gonna just try to do it on myself
Right.
for free.
Hmm.
Right. So
Hmm.
what made you want to put, I think you said like 80% of your savings or whatever into this program? That's the hard
Yeah.
part.
So I think I told you, like, when I found out about the program through a podcast on Spotify. So when I first found out about it, it was like I looked at you as almost like a little like a kind of famous person. So when you messaged me the first time, I was like, oh my God, like Sam just messaged me. But I found you on Spotify. I was on my way to work, and then I kept thinking, like, I just had that like tick in my stomach, like investment banking. Should I do investment banking? Should I try it? So I said, you know what? Let me get some more context about what it is, what it entails. I went on Spotify and I just typed in investment banking. You popped up, and I said, let me listen. Like, I've never heard of this guy. I've never heard of this company. So I listened to you for a couple weeks on my way to work every day. And I was like, man, this guy's like really knowledgeable. Like, there's some good stuff. So did some more research, and then I was like, I already had an offer with Bank of America and their finance management program in New York. And it
Yeah.
was, good offer. Like, I was proud. Like, it was awesome. It was a great experience. But again, it was just that tick in the back of my head, and I was just like, okay, I like, if I keep hearing this, I keep hearing about investment banking, I keep getting all these signs, like I'm like, let me just like give it a shot. And then when the whole financial perspective came in, I was like, okay, this is really serious. Like, this is serious. And so I, again, like I said, I brought it to my mom. I kind of had to sell the program to her, kind of let her know the intricacies of it. And at the end of the day, what I said to myself was, you know what? Putting all this money into this program, but at the end of the day, like, I'm the one that has to put the maximum effort in there. So no matter what you present to me in the context, like, of the modules and everything, I was like, it's me at the end of the day. Like, I'm the one that's interviewing. I'm the one that has to submit the resumes and the application. So I told her, listen, no matter what happens, like, I'm still gonna do my part. They're not doing the job for me. I have to put in the work.
Yeah.
So what I could commit is the 40 hours that I'm not going to be working anymore to this program,
Yeah.
and swap that in for that. And I'm pretty sure, I'm like, I know I can do it. I just have to work hard, but I know I can do it. And so it was a lot of, like you said, a lot of faith, put a lot of faith in God and a lot of faith in myself. And that's why I said, let's do this. Like, I feel confident. And so I spoke to I spoke to Alex, who, you know, is the one that speaks to the students. And he kind of asked me, like, okay, what do you want to get out of this? And I was like, oh, I want to get the job. Like, I want to get the job. I want to get the career. You know, I want to get the experience. I want to meet people. And I was like, you know, I'll do whatever I have to do to make this work. And so, you know, it went blissfully from there.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
That's amazing. I mean, so then you came into this program, um, like, did you really dedicate 40 hours a weekend to recruiting from the time you joined this program, or like, what did you
Um,
do after you joined, I guess, and like,
yeah, so after I joined, I was still working, so I was in the process of leaving work. I mean, deciding what I was gonna do with my job because they had offered me like the part-time teller role.
mm,
But even then I knew that was very demanding. It was tough anyways. And so I was in all of that. And so the first couple of weeks I really just like got into the introductory stuff, you know, the first module with the resume and the cover letter and all that. And so I focused a lot of energy on that because I knew that was the most important thing when you're submitting the application, since they don't know you, they're just looking at you through a paper.
yeah,
So I did dedicate as many hours as I could to that. And then after I quit Wells Fargo and I was just full time with this, it was a lot of organizing myself with my time. Like, how much of time was I going to dedicate to classes? And then how much time was I going to dedicate to this?
mm,
So yeah, I took all the advice that you gave in the modules of, you know, at least 1 hour per day, like doing networking, you know, like schedule calls at the end of the week. And I was doing that. I can't tell you like how many hours in total I was dedicating per week. I honestly didn't keep track of it. It was just like, oh, I don't have homework. Okay, Wall Street Mastermind. You know, oh, Saturday, like I don't have plans. All right, Wall Street Mastermind. Or, you know, split that with homework. And that's pretty much what consumed my weeks. And at the same time, I was looking for search funds
yeah,
because I didn't have the relevant experience.
yeah,
And so I was also like interviewing for that, like researching for that. And next thing you know, it's like a whole month and a half passed by, and I was like, oh my goodness, like it's November. Like what? It was
yeah,
crazy. Everything went by so fast, so
yeah.
fast. Yeah.
And how did you end up, this offer that you got, that was your first interview, right? Well, that was your first real investment banking interview, right?
Yes.
How did you end up getting that interview? Did you network your way into it, or how did you come across it?
Sure did. So a couple months back before all of this started, I was looking into MBA programs, and again, since my financial circumstance, it's not, you know, the best. I was looking at companies that sponsors female students to pursue their MBA, and I came across this organization called Forte,
Yep.
and they focus on women who want to pursue a career in banking, anything that has to do with finance. And I signed up for their newsletter and it just kind of forgot about it. And then I saw that they sent me like an event, like a 2-day virtual event about investment banking and all things finance. And I was like, okay, like $25. I was like, all right, I'll spare this. You know, seems like a good investment again. And I signed up for it. At the time, I was already networking with other people. And, you know, I did the whole LinkedIn search and I started with my school. I just thought it was the easiest way to start. Made a lot of connections through there. And then, you know, I let them know about this and they said, yeah, like do it. You know, I think it's a good thing. You never know. So I went to this virtual event, and the second day they were having this sort of career expo. You know, you get to talk to recruiters, and I saw Deutsche Bank was one of those banks. So I went into the little virtual session, and one of the recruiters was there. And I asked them, hey, are there any programs around investment banking? You know, I'm pursuing a career in this. And he's like, yeah, actually, our deadline is today. Like, if everything's ready, like, go for it, do it today, and then email me. And that way, you know, I can kind of put it on the top of the pile. So I was like, okay. So like I hung up with him like right then and there. I was like, okay, enough of the event. And I just went in and I applied like ASAP. Thank God I had already had my resume reviewed, my cover letter reviewed.
Yeah,
And I was like, I kind of typed up the cover letter and, you know, made the adjustments how you said and included his name because I was like, I talked to him, so I'm putting on my cover letter. And then I submitted over. And from there he, you know, he kind of guided me, told me like what to expect with the high review questions and what to expect with the first and second round. So that was very helpful.
mm,
And he pretty much did what he promised, and he put it to the top of the pile clearly because the whole process took a month complete month for the whole entire process. So that was relatively fast.
Yeah.
And it just went from there, you know, first round and then final round, two back to back, and here I am.
Yeah. So first round was a higher view, right?
First round was the higher view. He told me though, like not to stress out about it, that they actually didn't look at it so heavily.
Mm.
So I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I studied anyway, so I did it. And then like a week after, 2 weeks after, I got the invitation for the first round interview.
Yeah.
And Deutsche Bank does something really cool. They actually have associates like reach out to some students and kind of tell us like, oh, if you have questions, you know, we could have a chat or something. And I thought it was really nice.
Yeah.
So the first round interview was intense, like I told you in our mock interview after.
Yeah.
I sort of messed up on the technicals. Like I felt that I could have been better prepared. And I'll be completely honest with you. When I got the invitation for the first round, I was just starting. No,
Yeah.
I was like in the behaviorals about to start the technicals. So I freaked out, you know.
Yeah.
So I know life did.
So actually that's an interesting point, right? So at that point we got invited to the first round. And when we say first round, we're not talking about the higher view anymore. We're talking about like a first
First
round
round interview.
interview because you
Hmm.
already passed the higher view,
Yeah.
right? And you had just finished your behaviorals and you had gotten feedback on your behaviorals from our coaches,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And for those who are not familiar with the program, typically in the program, we always prepare for the behaviorals first, and then we do the technicals last, right? And there's a reason for that, which is exactly what you just talked about, is that
Yeah.
you went into your first round and you weren't perfect with your technicals because you probably didn't have a lot of time to study it. But you knew just enough to like get by, right?
Hmm.
But your behaviorals were on point, right? Like
Yeah.
the fact that, because I want to emphasize this because I think a lot of students out there have this misconception that the technical part of the interview is what's going to ultimately determine your fate.
Yeah.
It matters, but honestly, like between the behaviorals and the technicals, like the behavioral is the more important part. Like you're not the first student who's not gotten the technical answers perfect and then still moved on inside of our program. Like we see that um, all the time, which is like if you're really, really good behaviorally and your technicals are like just good enough, but not perfect, you're probably still going to get advanced to the next round because they like who you are as a person and they like your story. Right. And honestly, like what's not to like about your story? Like for people who know how much, like where you come from and how much you have to overcome to get here is like, nothing but respect, right? I don't know how anyone could say, okay, yeah, this person's not going to be cut out for this job, right? But you have to be able to tell that story the right way, right? And
Yeah.
you have to be able to frame it the right way. And I think for people that we also see the flip side, which is a lot of people because they focus so much on the technicals and they're like, oh, they know how to answer every single technical question, but then they totally neglect their behavioral prep and their stories aren't polished. They don't tell it the right way. And
Yeah.
you can answer every single technical question correctly and the interviewer could hate you. Like I could just think you're like this cocky, stuck up, like know it all, right?
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And having been
Yeah.
interviewed myself is like at the end of the day, it's not about how many technicals you know. It's like it's about making the interviewer like you as a human being, person, because we are humans. We're biased. Like if I like you as a person and you messed up on some DCF question or whatever, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna like make an excuse and rationalize in my head why it's okay that you messed up because you're great in all these other areas, and we'll just teach you the DCF stuff that you don't understand yet later, right?
Hmm.
Versus if I don't like a person and you get every single question correct, again, I'm biased. I'm like, yeah, you got all the questions right, but like, I don't think he's a team player, or I don't think he's a good cultural fit. Like that's my favorite. It's like I don't think he's a good cultural fit. It's super vague. You don't know what that means, but that's like what they
Yeah,
think.
like what does that even like entail? Like what is it, what goes in that saying?
Right. But it's like
Yeah.
super arbitrary whether an interviewer decides to push you on to the next round or not. Right. And so
Yeah.
that's why we do things in the order that we do it in, is because it's just the best way. It's just the thing that's going to maximize your chances of getting the offer.
Yeah, and I'll kind of back up what you said with two things that happened to me. I noticed that a lot of the networking calls I was in with students, same thing. They would tell me the same thing. Oh, do you know your technicals? Like that's what you're gonna get tested on. Like here's the 400 guide, 400 question guide. I was like, I got it like 5 times. I'm like, man, I have like 50 copies of this thing on my email. So I was like, yeah, I know all the technicals. Even they kind of told me like, oh yeah, like 90% is gonna be technically gonna be good on that. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, but what about the behaviorals today? Yeah. But like the technicals. I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. And and then the second thing is that in the first round, the gentleman that interviewed me, I mean, I was nervous. Like I got stuck. The guy was so nice enough to even give me hints on like the technical stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I know this. Like, wait, I'm sorry, I just blanked out. And he's like, it's okay. And then when he asked me the behavioral questions, like he went as far as giving me feedback, which is not something you see all the time in an interview, especially with investment banking. And he even told me like on one of my answers, I forgot, I can't remember specifically what the question was. And he's like, oh, out of all the people I've interviewed in the last 2 days, this is the best answer I've ever heard. Like out of both, I was like, really? I was like, oh my God, I'm so humble. Like, thank you so much. Like, that's crazy. So I was
Wow.
like, thank you, Wall Street Mastermind. But I was like, wow, like, and so I think you're right. I mean, clearly, if it was for the technicals, I would not have moved on to the second round. I tell you that honestly.
Yeah.
But it was the behaviorals. Like, I made sure that I was like, okay, if I'm gonna mess up on my technicals, like, gotta be strong on my behaviorals. And essentially, it moved me on to the second round. I'm completely confident, and I'm 100% that that was the case for me. So, it goes to show that you're absolutely right with that.
How much would you say your behavior answers change from like what you had before Wall Street Mastermind to then
Mm.
the first draft you did with us when you first submitted to us to like the final draft after we gave you the feedback? Like was there a big difference or was it like kind of the same?
No, huge difference. I kept a journal for like just my interview journals, what I call it, and all the interviews I've ever done. Like I just write the questions they ask me and stuff, and I'll put notes on there, right? So when I was like interviewing with like internships and different banks, I would have like my manager kind of like call me as like an interview prep, and I wrote out like my walk me through your resume answer. And it's funny because when I started drafting my first draft with you guys,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, let me get my interview journal. I have some good stuff in there. And like after learning about how to really answer the questions, I looked at the answer and I was like, wow, this is so bad. Like I'm not saying anything here. Like I'm
Yeah.
not talking about my story. The personal side was completely missing.
Mhm.
And after seeing your videos, I gained so much insight and I saw the importance of really showcasing my story to the interviewer, but in like you say, in a concise way, not overdoing it.
Yeah.
And it changed so much. Like the answers that I've drafted, like I'm keeping them for life. you know they're super precious to me.
No, and your story is not over yet, right? This is just the beginning, and it's going to evolve over time. But what's important is that you learn how to do it, not like
Yes.
it's not this robotic thing of like, hey, here's your script and just go and memorize it, and your story is going to evolve over
Yeah.
time. But I think you bring up a really good point, which is, and I love that you kept the journal, by the way. That's like you're so detail oriented, but like uh, a lot of times when you're just looking at your own answers it's
Mhm.
going to sound good to yourself. That's why it's your
Mhm.
answer, right? Like otherwise it wouldn't be your answer. Like it's not like when you're coming up with your own
Mhm.
answers, you're not giving your best. You're gonna give your best. You're gonna try to do it in the best way that you know how. And so the really difficult thing with behaviorals is like if you're not getting feedback from someone else who actually knows what these bankers are looking for, a lot of times you're not gonna know what you're missing, right? And
Yeah.
that's not your fault. That's not anyone's fault. That's just
It's
how it
just,
is.
yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like if you write an essay for your English literature class, like you're not going to grade your own essay, right? Like
Yeah, exactly.
what kind of feedback are you going to give yourself, right? And so that's on the behavioral side. And then obviously, it sounds like your interviewer really liked you, which is why he was like so nice to you. And he was helping you and guiding you
Yeah,
through the
super
technicals,
nice.
and you got through the first round. He pushed you to the next round, and then I think you told me that he told you before the final round to like make sure you go study the technicals more, right?
Yes.
Because your behaviorals were so good already. He wasn't really worried about your behaviorals, but he's like, there's going to be more technical questions in the final round. Make sure you get better at that. And then so like, how much time did you have between your first round and your final round? It's like a week or less.
I had exactly 1 week.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then like,
Yeah.
what did you do that week then? Like, it's just like cram the technicals basically.
I know life it. I mean, I'm talking like wake up at like 7 a.m.
Yeah.
and have a quick breakfast, shower, and just get to it all day. And so what I did was like I pushed all my homeworks for that week to Sunday.
Mm.
Sundays are always deadlines. And I was like, all right, I'll just worry about that Sunday and just take that as my rest day. And then it was just like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I still studied after all my homework. And
Yeah.
then Monday, Tuesday, which Monday we had the mock interview. And yeah, he told me like, he's like, I know you have a high level overview of like what all the technical stuff is. He's like, you just need to get more, a little deeper with it because they're gonna ask you deeper questions.
Yeah.
And so I was super grateful that he would give me that advice,
Yeah.
at the end of an interview. But he told me like, yeah, you got this, it's okay, like just keep studying. And but he didn't even tell me it was gonna be a week from there or anything. So I found out the next day, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's next week, like that's not enough time. I started freaking out again. So I was like going to sleep super late, and I mean, realistically, like, I would take a break, like take 20-minute break, half an hour break here and there, because you're gonna fry yourself if you just like go a
Yeah.
1000%. That's not realistic. So I would take my breaks, but all in all, it was just that
But
technical, technical,
essentially,
technical.
essentially, what you're saying is you effectively had to learn all of your technicals in the span of 1 week.
Yes,
Okay. Which,
yes.
if we just let that sink in for a moment for all of our listeners, like that is one, not recommended for most people.
No.
Like, but two, like it's the degree of difficulty that we're talking about here is
Mm,
really, really high, right? Like most people, if you're people are always like, well, why should I join this program? It's like, why can't I just learn all this on my own? Like I
mm,
can, like I can just go and study the 400 questions guide on my own, memorize the answers, whatever, right? Like why don't I just do that? And you could do that, but it'll probably take hundreds of hours,
yeah.
right? This is what most
Yeah.
people do when they do it that way. You could take your financial modeling courses, you can memorize these interview guides and take hundreds of hours. And like, if you had, if you hadn't bet on yourself way back when you didn't decide to join this program, and then you were one of those people that said, "I'm just trying to learn, teach this stuff to myself,"
No
and
way.
you got a week to do it, you would have this opportunity would have been a missed opportunity, right?
Yeah.
How did you? How did you learn your technicals during that week? Was it just like going through our modules basically, or like how were you doing it?
So, I'll be honest, I realized in the first round, and yes, I agree with you. Had I not invested in the program and done it on myself, I probably would have just done like the 400 question guide and just YouTube my life away. And even like the guy that interviewed me was like, oh, like he even told me, he's like, you've heard of the 400 question guide, right? Have you looked at it? I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, well, he's like, you're going to have to know more than the 400 question guide. He told me flat out. And I was
Yeah,
like, wow, I respect you, for telling me that. And it's knowing how you have always taught us the concepts. Like if you understand the concepts, like, everything, you'll just flow. It'll just be 1,000 times easier. So
right.
that week I went in order. I revisited, valuation methodologies, equity, enterprise value, because I was still iffy on it. So
Yeah,
I kind of rewatched your videos like 3 times in that area, and then moved on to the valuation methodologies, resaw those like 3 times, and then focused the end of the week with just like the mock interview questions that you had prepared,
yeah,
and based my studying off of that. I'll be honest, I took a risk because I didn't finish all the technical videos.
yeah,
I stopped around the M&E math, and I said, well, this is it. Like if they ask me something, I'll be honest, and just tell them I don't know, but that I'll definitely figure it out and learn about it
yeah,
and kind of sell myself in that. But I figured that because the valuation methodologies are so deep and it has so much content, I felt like hopefully they just asked me about this because this is a lot already.
yeah,
That I feel like if anybody knows enough about valuation methodology, like you'll be fine, So I was like, I took a risk on myself. But yeah, essentially that's what I did. I just, went in deep, deep,
yeah.
deep, deep.
No, you took a calculated risk, right? And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure we also advised you on that, which we told you like go in this order, like
Yeah.
learn this first, then learn this, then if
Mm-hmm.
you still have time, go and learn this, but save that for last because that's the most advanced and least likely to show up. And sometimes you just have to kind of like if you don't have enough time, you have to make trade-offs, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so okay, so you study all the materials, and then like we did the mock on Monday. I remember your interview was on what, Tuesday, Wednesday,
It was on a Wednesday,
Wednesday. Yeah, so,
Wednesday morning.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we did the mock on Monday, and we focused most of the mock on your technical side because we felt good about your behavioral side already, right?
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about the mock interview a little bit. Like, what did you think of that experience? Like, obviously, we put you in the hot seat. Other people were watching you, right? Like, I
A
mean,
lot of people went that day.
a
A lot
lot
of
of
people
people went
showed
that
up.
day. Yeah, a
I
lot
was
of
like,
other students were
man.
there, and they watched you get grilled by me, and then like I was giving you feedback. But like, talk about that experience. Like, how was that for you? And like, did it make a difference for you? You know?
Absolutely. And I told you I was grateful for the fact that you grilled me on it because the questions you asked me were questions I wasn't asked in my first round. And it, because it was just my first interview, I didn't know anything else. So anything that you would have asked me, was the first.
Yeah,
And even though I felt strong in the three statements, I still got the last part wrong, and you kind of had to help me with that. So it was intense overall. I felt it was a good way to prepare, and I was grateful that you asked me, I would say complicated questions, because it's just I got the nerves out a little earlier, and it helped me just kind of think of, okay, I'm still weak in this, like let me focus this last day on these couple areas, and kind of refine that as much as I can.
yeah,
And so it was very helpful for me.
yeah.
I must say, yeah, honestly, it was.
Yeah. I mean, a couple things we try to make our mocks as hard as possible because what we want you to feel like is when you walk into the actual interview, we want the actual interview to be feel relatively easier than what you've already gone through, right? um,
Yeah.
it's like working out. If you're like always lifting heavy weights and then one day you had to pick up something like a box or something, like, oh, this is easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is like we try to do the mock interview a little bit ahead of time, so we leave some time before the actual interview so that you can go back and do some last minute studying on the areas that you needed to study more on, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
remember that day when I mocked interview you though, like you weren't perfect, but like it was
Nope.
like, but you were like 80-90% of the way there. Like I could tell the stuff, but you just needed like a lot of the more nuanced stuff. You needed someone to
Yeah.
actually like teach it to you, right? But
Yeah.
like once I explained it to you, then you got it, and so I knew you understood this stuff, but it was just like because you had learned it in such a short amount of time. Like I
Mm-hmm.
would say, even getting to the level that you got to was already like very very impressive, right? So how did the actual super day go then? Like how did it turn out? Like what was that?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I did. I told you. I was like, oh wow, I just had an aha moment when you were explaining whack. So that was awesome. I felt so good.
Yeah,
But yeah, the super day, it was easier actually. It was easier, and the first round was just all behavioral questions. The guy was very laid back, very slow talker, and just kind of tell me about yourself and why do you want to work here. So I was like, woo, that was like so easy.
yeah.
But then, like, he even asked me some questions that I didn't necessarily prepare for. Like, one of the things that he asked me was like, "Oh, if you could work on a deal, like, what type of deal would you want to work on?" And
Mm,
at first, I was like, "Oh, any deal. Like, I just want to get experience." But then I was like, "Well, if I had to pick, like, I'd probably pick an M&A deal." And I gave him my reasoning behind that. But
yeah,
again, because of the way you taught us to kind of think about a behavioral question, I didn't prepare for it. It just came to me and I was able to answer it. And he was like, "Oh, wow, that's pretty interesting. Like, wow, thank you for sharing." It was nice. Like he had a positive response to it. So I felt good,
yeah.
that like you said, like I learned it to a point where you can ask me any sort of behavior and I'll have something to talk about in that structured manner. And then the second round,
I want
huh?
to call out something. There's just like
Yeah.
the reason why you're able to do that is like we're not teaching you what to say, we're
Mhm.
teaching you how to think, right? We're
How to
giving you
say,
guys
yeah.
frameworks on how to
Hmm.
structure your answers so that you can just identify what is the right framework for this and then just kind of fill in the blank on the spot, right?
Correct. Yeah.
That's because you're always going to get curveball questions. Like there's an infinite number of questions that they could possibly ask you. Like you can't possibly have an exact answer prepared for every single thing out there, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the
And
first interview. It was
that
behavioral.
was the that was the first round, yeah, the behavioral, and then second round was more technical. Now, this was the type of interviewer that you kind of told us about in the past, where be careful because they'll want to cut you off. They'll want to seem like they're in a rush, and they do it on purpose to corner you.
Yeah.
And when I heard how he was talking, like he told me, okay, like tell me about yourself. And he sounded like he was talking so fast, like. And so I started talking about, I'm walking him through my story, and he cuts me halfway. And he's like, oh, wait, I have another call. Stay on the line. And he kept me on hold for like 2, 3 minutes. Longest 2, 3 minutes of my life. I was like, man, that's so weird for an interview, you
Yeah.
know? And so, I mean, I took the 2 minutes to like relax. And I was like, okay, remember what Sam taught us? Like, don't be afraid. It's okay.
Yeah.
And then when he comes back, it was the same thing across the board, and you could tell the guy was just like in a rush, and cutting me off in the middle of my answers. Um, and so that was intense because the questions were fairly easy. You could tell he didn't have anything prepared as far as what to ask me. He was just looking for me to say something that'll trigger questions. So
Mhm.
when he asked me, like, oh, like, what are you going to do as an analyst? I kind of told him, oh, I'll build valuation models and this. And he's like, oh, valuation. Okay, let's talk about that. Like, walk me through the 3 valuation methodologies. And then he would grill me on each one. Like, he went one by one and he grilled me on each one. And so, toward like when we got to the DCF and we went deep, he went deep with that. And I was like so happy. I was like prepared. And
Yeah.
he's like, okay, you're good. Like, I'm going to stop asking you questions now. Okay, like, I have to go now. So bye. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
Because the DC was exactly what we talked about in our mock interview.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
Yeah. So
And he went deep with the equations and stuff, like the concept, like the thoughts behind, like why does that go there? Why does this go there? So again, it goes to back what you're saying, like it's not just about learning the guides. You have to understand why things go where they go or why things happen when they happen.
yeah.
That's important because everything was just conceptual that he asked me, and I
Yeah.
think that helped.
That's a perfect example. It's just like he's not asking like a list of canned questions, like hey,
Mm-mm.
400 questions got over. He's just going off the cuff, right? He's like basically just seeing where you take the conversation, and then he'll just whatever you say, he'll drill down on it multiple times to see like if he can get you to mess up, right? And
Yeah.
you just you can't prepare for that
Mm-mm.
if you're just memorizing answers to a fixed list of questions. And then by the way, the interviewers, just like your first interviewer told you, you gotta know more than 400 questions guide because I always tell people these interviewers have also read the 400 questions guide. They know what questions everyone's memorizing. So like they know
Yeah.
not to just like ask the exact questions that everyone's already memorized because it doesn't tell them anything, right?
Yeah.
Yes, like I think people just still continue to prepare that way because they don't know of a better way to do it, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's really a bummer. So obviously you got the offer in the end, or we wouldn't be here.
Yes.
Where is your offer from? Can we tell people?
Yeah, so I kind of gave it away earlier in the conversation. So I got a full-time offer from Deutsche Bank. They are sending me to their new New York office in Wall Street, overlooking Central Park. So that's awesome because I've never been to New York, so I'm so excited for
Oh
that.
wow,
Yeah, it's
a
the
big
first
change for you.
time.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
huge, huge. Coming from Miami, going to New York, it's a big change. Yeah.
But that's awesome. Honestly, like New York is one of my favorite places in the world. It just has a different energy. Everything is obviously super fast paced, but it's super
Yeah.
diverse. And I think you're gonna love it out there. I think it's great for young people, especially just like
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna meet so many different people and a lot of people doing cool things, not just finance. There's a lot of finance people out there, but people doing other things too, musicians, artists, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs. And so it's the one place that I've always wished that I could have lived there for at least a couple of years because I never lived there. I did my thing
Um,
back on the West Coast, um,
oh,
but I'm super excited for you. That's really
yeah.
awesome. Um, and so I guess like last thing because I know you got to run soon, but um, what's like one piece of advice that you have for people who maybe like in a similar situation as you, Maybe
Yeah.
they're starting the process late because you joined our program as a senior. That's like
Yes.
really late, right? It's not like you did a junior summer internship. Like someone like you who's maybe starting late, doesn't really have like you don't have any advantages really, right? Starting out, you just have to earn everything yourself. Like, was there a
Yeah.
piece of advice that someone told you at some point, or even your own self-reflection, like now in hindsight, like something that really helped you in this process? Anything like that that you want to pass on to people?
Yes, a couple things. So, first, I would say have faith in yourself, and oof, that gets me emotional. But like, have faith in yourself, have faith in what you believe in, and have a good support system that's gonna help you because it's hard, and you have to push through. And then I'll say also consistency. Any time that you can be with friends or going out with a partner or something, really think about what the time that you're sacrificing to do those things when you can perhaps be studying or landing that next opportunity, or not missing opportunities. So I think having a level of consistency and just dedication, you have to be dedicated. And I think that the way that I've prepared for this so fast, is going and just like my life overall, I feel that it's helped me to really see that, if you want to be the best at something, you have to be dedicated. I mean, I look at you, and I see that you're always working, you're always talking to people, you message me like midnight, you're answering my messages, and that again, that because you're trying to grow this business, and it's a good thing what you're doing, and I respect you. And I think, again, like if you want to do something great, you have to be dedicated and you have to be committed. And I think understanding like why you do what you do is important. For me, I realized what my why was, and I just reminded myself of it when I was feeling lazy, or when I, perhaps didn't want to wake up early, and just kind of telling myself like I have to do this, I have to do this. So definitely believing in yourself, having a level of consistency and determination and dedication is what'll take you far, is what I would say. And of course, having faith, you know.
Yeah, I think that's really really great advice. Knowing your why is really really key.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I think having heard your story, we all know what your why is, right? You're trying to improve, improve like just your life, but also like quality of life for you and your family, right? And
Yeah.
that's there's no stronger reason than that. That's what we're all trying to do at the end of the day, right?
Hmm.
But I think like keeping your why in the back of your mind and always going back to it, like you said, when you're maybe feeling a little bit lazy or feeling like you want to procrastinate or feeling like you just want to go out and have fun and whatever. And it's just like, if your why is strong enough, then it'll always keep you on track and keep you
For
committed,
sure.
consistent, like you said. So I think that's really, really great advice. And I appreciate you for sharing that. And I also appreciate you for saying what you said about me. I do work very hard,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's because I also know what my why is, right? And so that
Mhm.
definitely resonates. But anyway, I gotta say this is one of my favorite client reviews that I've ever done, just because there's so much positive energy and again, how much you had to overcome to get here, and the results obviously speak for themselves. Like, you earned it. um, you deserve all the success that you got, and I'm super happy for you and your family. And
Yes.
I guess at this point, I'll just, for all of our listeners that are still listening, like, if you guys want our help with your investment making recruiting process, whatever your situation might be, maybe you have a similar situation to Valeria, maybe you're starting late, maybe you don't have that much relevant experience, maybe you don't come from like a background that's like super advantageous when it comes to breaking into these types of fields. Whatever the reason may be, like, reach out, get help. It can be done. First step is you got to
Mhm.
believe in yourself, but then the second step is, like Valeria said, like, surround yourself with a great support system that can actually like give you the help and advice that you need, right? And that's what we're here for. um, we even started doing this thing recently where we're now offering a money back guarantee. So like, you come in this program, and if you do the work we ask you to do and you don't get results, we'll give you your money back. That's how much confidence we have in our process. No one else out there is offering something like this, which is honestly, I
Hmm.
think some people are like, "Are you insane?" Sam's like, "No, I'm not. I just we've worked with hundreds of students now at this point. We
Yeah.
have enough data on who we can and can't help, and we're just very confident. We have a lot of conviction in what we're doing. So if you guys are interested in learning more about that, reach out, schedule a free virtual coffee chat with us. That would be the first step so that we can learn more about you. You can learn more about us. We can answer each other's questions and see if it's a good fit. You can do that by going to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street's abbreviated to ST, to the wall, stmastermind.com/apply. And if you're not a good fit or if we can't help you, rest assured we will tell you the truth, because what we don't want to do is waste your time, waste our time, work together, and then have to refund you. Like, that's just bad business, right? So we will be completely honest with you and give you our unbiased advice on what's the best thing that you should do, whether that's working with us or not. And either way, we'll do our best to help you out. All right. So Valeria, again, I want to thank you so much for coming on
Thank
here,
you.
sharing your story, and being so open and transparent about how everything happened. And um, really, again, I'm just super happy for you. And
Thank you.
thank you for.
Now it's weird because I've heard so many of these testimonials, and now I'm like in one. So I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
Now someone else is going to listen to my podcast on
Yeah.
Spotify, and then they're going to hear your story. So there you go.
Yeah, very grateful. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy I was able to contribute, and I definitely look forward to continuing this relationship with Wall Street Mastermind, and just be able to pay it forward on my own as I start my career. Definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're always part of the family, and as you move forward with your career, I look forward to seeing all the success. And anything else that we can help you with along the way, you know how to find me. So
Yes.
cool.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that'll be it for today. We'll be back with more of these for you guys in the near future, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, bye.